Hey folks, this is Bert Sperling here, and it is noontime on the Pacific Coast, and it is 3 o'clock on the East Coast, and in the great Midwest, it is of course around 1 or 2 o'clock. And anyway, I look forward to talking with you today. It's 2017, can't believe it. It's a new year, lots of things going on. And a lot of things of importance too when you think about the best places to live. So I'm going to just mute this because I'm hearing myself. And in the great Midwest. There we go. Okay, I didn't need to hear myself twice. Anyway, it's amazing how much, how complex they're making this as far as just doing a live broadcast. But anyway, we're happy to do this, and it's a new year. It's the first one of 2017, and there are lots of things to talk about as far as great places to live. So here at Sperling's Best Places, we have our team busy. We have Dana Bridges, Mike Kehoe is working on our business development. Nick Arnold is working on cartography and climate issues. Al Olson is working on our website. Bertrand Sperling, my son, older son, is working hard on business and research, doing a lot of work behind the scenes. And Ted Sperling, my other son, is working on lots of interesting content we're going to bring to you in 2017. And of course, my wife Gretchen and myself are working hard, trying to keep on top of the best places to live and look at trends that can help you find your own best place to live, work, play, and thrive. So anyway, so happy that you're joining us today. And if you're not joining us live, I know a lot of people are looking at our broadcasts that have been saved to YouTube, and they can look at that later. So we're happy that you're watching on that if you're not watching live. So anyway, let's talk about best places to live. You know, I was thinking that it used to be that we could look at great places to live and really the population of the US, and because we can live and work more places, we can telecommute. That's becoming much more of a possibility and much more of an option. We might think, well, we can move anywhere if we have a job that will allow us to do that, and we have the skills. We can move anywhere and live anywhere, so basically it should be flattening out. There should be less areas that are extreme one way or the other. There should be, people should be moving wherever they want to move. Well, what we're finding is actually that people are moving where things are getting more concentrated in certain areas. And what we're finding is that more people are moving to larger cities. And not just to larger cities. They used to move to the suburbs of the large cities. Now they want to live as close to the center of that city as possible. They want the real urban living experience. And these are often young people and say empty nesters as well. And maybe the kids are grown and they've moved out, or people are starting out and they want to get a loft, or they want to live somewhere downtown. They want a condo, and they want to be part of a vibrant urban experience. We're seeing that a lot more, and really interesting things are happening. Places like in the Rust Belt, so to speak, in the Midwest, where manufacturing has tailed off a lot. And those downtown cores, where they have lots of older buildings, have become revitalized. And with the revitalization, they're affordable and they're interesting, and it's really bringing a lot of attention to this downtown core. So what we're finding is that these places are becoming really an opportunity. So some of these places that we're seeing that are that you think maybe are sort of down and out, and they have been for a long time. They've been fighting with high unemployment, high crime, housing stock that has been decreasing in value. Some of these places are coming back up again. And that's because people are looking for a downtown experience, and frankly, they're getting priced out. They're getting priced out of the West Coast, all the coastal areas pretty much, the East Coast and the West Coast. Of course, New York City, Boston, anywhere here on the West Coast, such as Seattle is booming again. San Francisco is crazy expensive. And even, say, young tech people that are earning a lot of money by any other standard can barely afford to live in the Bay Area. Los Angeles is another place where prices are climbing. And in Portland, Oregon, it has been sort of under the radar as a sort of a secret treasure because it was priced affordably by West Coast standards. It continues to lead the country in home appreciation for the last 2 or 3 years, at least. So what we're finding is that people are moving to places that they can afford. And what's happening is some spillover effect. We're finding folks from San Francisco that can't afford to live. Let's say they're people in the tech industry. They want to live in an interesting, cool place. They're moving to Portland, a lot of them. And they're telecommuting or they're working in an office here in Portland, and they might go to the home office once a month or so and check in and have a series of meetings and then go back to Portland. Or we're hearing this also, Phoenix. There was a recent article in the New York Times about Phoenix is having a tech community now that is new to them. And these are transplants from Silicon Valley offices, San Francisco offices. So we're seeing this. And I see this continuing. Frankly, I don't see how places like San Francisco can continue to grow and thrive with the high prices that they have. So basically, people are going to be forced out of there. I know some folks from Oakland. See, Oakland used to be sort of the poor cousin of San Francisco, just like Tacoma used to be the poor cousin of Seattle. Well, both Tacoma, Washington, and Oakland have now become gentrified. They've become a lot more hip, and prices are going up there. So what was affordable nearby is now becoming less affordable, and people are being forced out. I was originally playing some music with a guy from with a guy named Chris, who got priced out of Oakland, and he moved up to Portland. So we're seeing that a lot, where people are getting forced out of areas and moving to other places. Now, if you can't afford Portland, you move to other places down the list. And some of the questions that we have here are from people that want to know where to live. I'll go ahead and give you my best suggestions about that and give you some tips on where to go. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit more about place. Then we're going to get into what we're doing on our website. And then we're going to be talking and answering some of your specific questions and giving you my thoughts about how you can find your own best place to live. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about place, because I think this is interesting. What's happening in the US is we are segregating ourselves. Now, this recent election points this out very, very clearly. What's happening is that there are states, there are areas with people that think and feel the same way, and we're seeing this more and more. For instance, there are states that went strongly Republican and states that went strongly Democrat. And what we're seeing is that people want to live with people like themselves. And this is becoming increasingly important. As states used to be more homogeneous. They used to be more similar. They had the same sort of government going on. But lately, due to political polarization, we're seeing states that are becoming more extreme. For instance, North Carolina, they've had issues with their political laws that they've passed This is the transgender bathroom issue, and people are upset about that. In fact, so upset they've now gotten a Democratic governor. Well, the Republicans have made it so the Democratic governor has been crippled as far as the powers that he's going to be having. This upsets people who are Democratic in North Carolina, but it maybe makes the Republicans in North Carolina happier. So it's entirely possible that those folks who are Democrats in North Carolina are going to find a better place to live for them, people who think and feel like themselves, along political issues. In Kansas, there's been a really interesting experiment of conservatism, which is cutting taxes as much as possible in order to spur new business. What they're finding is that the cutting of taxes has meant a decrease in the quality of life and the services that they're developing. And there's been some pushback about that. So for some people, Kansas is not a great spot to live because of the services that have been cut back and the sort of political agenda that's been going on there. And folks don't like sometimes the West Coast because it's too politically liberal, or the big cities like New York. So what we're finding is that really birds of a feather are flocking together. And this is important, and this is where Best Places can help you, because we're going to be looking at the different lifestyle. In this next year on our site in 2017, we're going to be getting a lot more into lifestyle and give you some tips so you can find places that you want to live, neighbors that you want to have, states that maybe have the same agenda you do as far as social and economic issues that can help you live a better lifestyle. So I don't have a dog in the fight. I know where I want to live. I'm having a great time here in Oregon and enjoying it very much, but I really want you to find the best place for you. So we're going to be helping you with that, and that's why Best Places is more important than ever as places become more different, and your chance of finding the best place maybe is greater, or maybe it's even more challenging. We're going to help you with that as we go ahead and explore the different areas and find the ones that are most in tune with your thinking and feeling. So let's see what we're going to be doing. Well, one thing is we're going to be putting a climate filtering map. We're going to be working on a new map feature. Our web team is going to be doing that, heading up by our chief climate scientist, Nick Arnold. Dana and Al are going to be helping them bring that live, but it's going to be an interactive climate map, because we've had a lot of feedback from people that it's really important to find the right climate for them. They might have climate aspects you can take a look at. We are going to be working on a mobile app where basically you can drive around the city, the neighborhoods, or the entire US, and press a button and find out about the area that you're actually driving through and find out more about it. This is going to be a really interesting tool. I can't wait to use it myself. So I think that's a pretty good judge of it. We're going to be working on the comfort index. Now on our site, what we've had is an index to tell what the comfort's like. Last year, what we had was we looked at the summer climate and found the places that were best for summer climate. Then we switched that, and in the last few months, we've changed it to basically a comfort index that looks at the overall comfort. But that has a problem, because you can have you might have one climate that is extreme one way and another climate that is extreme the other way, and then their scores might be the same because they're both deviate from perfection in the same way. For instance, you might have a place like Seattle, which is cloudy and cool, not perfect weather. And then you might have, say, Orlando, which is sort of, it's beautiful much of the year, but it's hot and muggy other parts. So they might both be imperfect in some way, and they might have the same score, which really tells you nothing. So we heard your comments and criticisms. What we're going to come out with is a new climate comfort index that's going to have 4 seasons. So you're going to have spring, summer, winter, and fall. And you're going to be able to have basically what is the best, the most ideal climate for that. We're looking at the range of temperatures. We have a whole list of temperatures, daily temperatures, the minimum, maximum, and the average for each one. We are looking at the humidity as well during the summertime and other aspects of what makes a really great climate. By the way, San Diego is pretty great, and that always turns up well. Hawaii might have the best climate overall. So we're using those as sort of our levels, our measures of perfection, and then we're looking at places that deviate most from there. So that'll be exciting. Those are going to actually go live very, very soon on the site. So check the site in, say, in the next week, about a week from now, we'll have those up. So 4 climate comfort indices for spring, summer, winter, and fall, and you're going to find a place that's just right for you. We're also working on a board game. Our thought was, you know, we like to get around and play board games as a family and friends, and it's very popular these days to do this. And we thought, how about a Best Places board game? So what we can find is that it'll help you find your best place to live and also be a lot of fun to play. We're working with a designer of games to find something for you. It'll be fun. It's going to take a little while to go ahead and get it just right, I'm sure. So it's going to involve some testing. But when that happens, we're going to have that on our website. So look for that in 2017. We're going to come out with rating places, a rating system for all places. That's going to be interesting. Almost live. Dana and Al are working on this very hard right now. Dana's done a great job of designing a commenting system so that you can provide comments for places that you're familiar with. So, and this is really meaningful because we try and do all the research and give you a lot of insight about great places to live, but there's no one that knows more about where you live than you do. So please go on our site and leave comments about different places, about your insight, and share it with others. It's really valuable because you're helping other people find their own best place, and that might be where you live. Let's see what else. Oh, we're also going to be working on our Best Places to Live quiz. We have our Find Your Best Place quiz, and it is right now it doesn't have as much detail as we want, but we are working on that. So that's going to be coming up in the next few months. And finally, we're going to have neighborhoods on our site. We have in the past had down to the zip code level. Every zip code in the U.S. is covered by our information, our data, our insight, and we're going to take it to the neighborhood level here in the next month. So anyway, it looks like we're getting some comments. That's great. Thanks a lot for those. And by the way, you're listening to this in YouTube. It has a chat window. You can see that people are leaving their comments, asking questions. I'm going to be getting to those in just a bit. So let's go ahead and get to some questions. Let me go ahead and first get a drink of water from our Sperling's Best Places mug. Water just tastes a little better from a Sperling's mug. Anyway, what we have is the question from John: is the Denver area overpriced? Where in the West is it going to be hot in the next couple of years? Well, that's a good question. I think every place is getting hotter, John, first of all. I would say if you're looking at the long term, I guess candidly, I'm getting on in years. I'm by the time the climate really hits hard, it's my kids that are going to be worried about that. Our kids are going to be worried about climate. Myself, probably not so much in the next few years or whatever. But as far as climate, the Northwest is, every place is going to be drying out somewhat. Actually, in the South and of the U.S., not so much. I'm talking about the South. I'm talking about the South along the Atlantic seaboard and Georgia, Kentucky, those areas. We did some long-term climate forecasting and looked at some of the models. We find that's actually going to be warmer and wetter. And over on the West Coast, it's going to be drier. So places that are dry on the West Coast are only going to become drier and warmer. But you asked about Denver in particular. It's interesting. Denver is a lot like Portland, Oregon in a lot of the demographics as far as the metro area. And I think it's important when you look at a city, look at the entire metro area, because what you're really doing is that metro area provides so much in the way of resources for the area. And that includes jobs. You're not just traveling to and from a city for a job or within the city, you're traveling within the entire metro area. Also airports, hospitals, a lot of resources, lots of recreational opportunities, arts and culture are all within the metro area. So is the Denver area overpriced? Yeah, for some people it is. It's growing very fast. It's growing a lot like Portland is. People are finding it very desirable. It does have an air quality problem. It has an inversion, sort of a bowl that happens, although their air quality has improved a lot in the last 5 years. Some of the areas are becoming pretty cool and hip, like the Colfax area of Denver. So if you're interested into sort of hipster type of ethic or lifestyle, you'll certainly find that there. I'd say it's a really great place to live. And let me just go ahead and talk for a minute, John, about not only Denver, but any area. And some of these questions I'm going to refer back to what I'm going to say now. And that is, you might find an area that is really great. And you think, well, I can't afford it. But you don't have to live often in the most populated or desirable parts. So yeah, it might be out of your budget within that metro area in some places, but you can move out of the area. You can move to new areas that are being developed and find the places that are going to be growing. So if you want to be a little bit of an urban pioneer, don't go to the places where everybody else is. Try to find those places that are going to be the next ones on the list. For instance, I just said how the folks from San Francisco are moving to Portland, and now Portland is getting very high priced. The next one on the list, sort of, if you look at these people getting displaced and bumped further down the line, might be Boise, Spokane, other places in the Northwest that are going to be the next spots in maybe 10, 20 years. For instance, Bend, Oregon, it's Deschutes County was actually it had the highest growth rate of any county in the United States in the mid 2000s. Well, for every boom, there's a bust, I always say, and sure enough, it did go bust, but it's coming back stronger than ever. So the Bend area in the Oregon's high desert is doing very well. And so what you want to do, if you want to find a bargain, if you want to be sort of ride the wave and catch that wave before it really starts developing, look for the places that are underpriced, either on the outside of a metro area, which can be smaller towns of an area, or say in that same region where places are undervalued at this point and they're going to be developing. So yeah, I think Denver might be overpriced for a lot of people, but for some people, like coming from San Francisco, it's going to be a crazy great deal. and it's going to be really affordable. So it all depends what you have to work with. Okay, Dave says, Bert, I think I'm chasing a unicorn. Where's a great place to live with year-round great climate, very affordable, great scenery, still has great restaurants, and some culture to enjoy? What are not options are high heat, humidity, lots of freezing rains, or dreary winters. I see you focus on the U.S., but do we have anything to do with countries where a lot of the population speaks English? Well, great question, Dave. And I do appreciate your question. I think you're chasing, that you might be chasing a unicorn, but hey, you might find a place that's just perfect for you. So let's say year-round great climate. I don't know of any, well, you know, you might be talking about Hawaii, San Diego area, that sort of places. Very affordable, great scenery. So you're asking for a great place to live that basically no one knows about yet, and still has good restaurants and some culture to enjoy. Well, that means it has to have a larger metro area. So this is going to be kind of tough. I don't know how much money you have to work with. Well, you said very affordable. This is going to be a problem. You're going to have to live on the outskirts of a larger place, and you might have to drive into an area, say maybe 45 minutes, an hour, to enjoy all of its amenities, and then go back to your place, which is more affordable. That's what I would suggest. And as far as year-round great climate, that leaves out much of the country. High heat, humidity, well, so you don't want high heat, humidity, or freezing rain, or dreary winters. Dreary winters, that's the Northwest for you. Boy, it is kind of a toughie. You know what you could do? Like the Northwest has the best summers of the United States. It's perfect weather. It's beautiful. It's like 70s and 80s. Rarely does it get above 90 degrees. If you can live two places, if you can go ahead and go to the Northwest for the summer and live somewhere else warmer, say even you could enjoy Phoenix or wherever that gets crazy hot during the summertime. But if you leave when it gets really too hot, you can enjoy the best of both worlds. But all I can suggest is maybe somewhere in Southern California, in a place that is not too populated. You don't want to be fighting the people that have jobs, high-paying jobs, and that want to have a place that's close to the core so they don't have a long commute. You'll just be competing against them. So you're going to have to be creative to find the next spot. Let's go to the chat area here. Let's go ahead and see what we have. We see, looks like Barbara, it has, I live where it's cheap. She says low property taxes and low homeowners association. She's in Pensacola, Florida. That's cool. And let's see that she's trying to keep Pensacola a secret. Okay, sorry, Barbara. We just let the cat out of the bag. Pensacola is cool. It's in the Emerald Coast, as they call it, of Florida. And we have another question about the Emerald Coast. It is beautiful up there. That's on the Gulf Coast. It's sort of on the panhandle of Florida along the coastal area. Crestview, Fort Walton Beach, Destin, Florida are all very nice areas. Barbara says that it is, she has a place in New Mexico. It's getting hotter every year. Yeah, it is. And anyway, and south of Santa Fe. Yeah, and Santa Fe, we took our road trip in 2015. A few weeks ago, I could have said we took a road trip last year, but we can't. Now I have to say it's 2015. And spent some time in Santa Fe. It's a beautiful area. It is high priced. State capital, which is important from an economic standpoint. Very consistent Whenever you have a state capital or a college town, you have a great economic climate because the state government is always going to be there to sort of moderate things and keep it on a level keel. Same thing with the college. There's always things to do with the college. Let's see, Barbara has some great comments on our chat room if you'd like to go there. So that'll be really good to check out. She's providing a lot of useful information. And let's see what else we have here. We have, what is the best and safest island in the Caribbean? Wow, I don't know, but I'm really tempted to spend a few months at this time of the year when it's cold and we've got snow on the ground, there's freezing rain. You folks know what I'm talking about. You folks in Boston, Rhode Island, New York, and all the wetness, the extreme rain going on in California. I think it's probably a good time to check out the Caribbean. Now, I don't know if I'll be able to get away. And I'm sorry, I don't have any insights as far as which is the best one. I think the Bahamas are wonderful from what I've heard. And if I said anything more than that, I'd probably be giving you some information that is, if not faulty, then it wouldn't be as complete as we'd like it to be. But when I find out something, I'll go ahead and share it with you. And that was from Glenn. Suzanne says, how do I find real-time actual details of a town we're interested in moving to in Northwest Georgia? I've never visited, but am being transferred soon to an unfamiliar town I've never visited, and nor do I know anyone close. Okay, Suzanne, got some great tips for you. Here we go. First of all, I know what you mean. When I was a kid, my parents, my dad was in the Navy. So every 2 or 3 years, sometimes every year, we'd move to a new place to live. I've lived in Key West, Florida, Kodiak, Alaska, Carmel, California, Brooklyn, New York, let's see, Hempstead, East Meadow, Oslo, Norway, North Carolina, Norfolk, San Diego, all those that I did when I was a kid. And yeah, it's kind of hard moving into a new place and then finding out what it's like. Fortunately, there are a lot of resources. Number one is I would check out newspapers. Check out newspapers online. Look for the local newspaper, and a lot of times they'll let you read that for free or for a small amount, a few dollars a month. And that has a lot of news that's going on. I would also listen to radio stations, and they have, or TV stations. Sometimes TV stations have a live feed, or you can check out clips that they might have of past newscasts or stories of interest. Keep up on that. Check it out every day, not just once or twice, but it'll give you an idea of what's going on in the area. And news organizations will always tell you what's going on in a sort of unvarnished way. Unlike, say, a Chamber of Commerce, their job is to point out as much news as possible. In fact, you're more likely to get even worse news than what actually might be going on. As they say in the local news business, if it bleeds, it leads. In other words, if there's some accident or a crime going on that involves someone getting hurt, there's blood, they'll often lead with that. Now, that might be not representative of what's going on, but it is more interesting to people who are listening. So check out the radio stations, listen to maybe like what some local talk shows are talking about. Also listen to the newscast that is a TV news station. And I would do this, check out a website called meetup.com, meetup.com. They have these meetups, and basically they have tens, maybe hundreds of thousands of them around the world. And basically it's a way for people online to find people that want to do things with other people like themselves. So there can be ones that are involved in woodworking, photography, bike riding, yoga, Tai Chi, sports, all sorts of sports, golf, frisbee golf, you name it. There are meetups all over the US. And I bet in whatever town it is that you're looking to, check out meetup.com. They will have lists of things that are going on, and you can then have something to do. Let's say you're into knitting, like Gretchen is. You can find a group of knitters that are like yourself. You can be talking with them, and you can have a conversation with them online and meet them virtually. And by the time you move to your new place, you've got people to look up, you've got meetings to go to, you've got things to do that might take you years otherwise. And also, if you have interests, find places of business. For instance, if you're a photographer, find a place that is into a photography shop, if they have those anymore. I guess that's a bad example. But some people are into board games. I mentioned board games earlier. There's a gaming culture oftentimes. Maybe there's a place where they're playing board games. There's some huge places here in Portland. Portland's kind of a hipster community, and people are totally into board games. There's a place called Guardian Games where they have maybe 100 or more people playing at night, even playing games with each other, and they're games you can check out. But that's just an example. There's probably meetups for all of that. So meetup.com, that's my big tip for the day. Let's see. What else do we have? I think we have some, we have some interesting comments. People asked about crime. And I see that it looks like Tony is chatting about that as well. How is the crime in Estrella, in Phoenix, Arizona? So this is going to be interesting. Let me go ahead and find this comment that I think it was Jenny. Jenny wrote to us online. And Jenny, I hope you're listening, because we're going to go ahead and talk about your comment right here. So she says, Bert, I've been researching crime rates as best I can, and I have a question. I'm sure there's a word for it, but do you base your city-town crime rates on the number of crimes per population of the town? Because I've seen higher or worse crime rate numbers on this site on low population towns with little or no crime actually committed there, compared with lower, better numbers on high population towns with more crimes than lower population. I hope this makes sense. I want to find low crime towns for possible places to move to in the not too distant future. And I find if the numbers are based on what I described above, it's misleading. For example, I'd rather live in a little town that has only seen 1 or 2 thefts in the past year than a much larger town that has more crime, especially violent crimes, even if the per person numbers are lower. I hope that makes sense. Yeah. Okay, it really does. And I think, first of all, one thing that's interesting is that crimes, even though they're at a low, they're not at a historic low. They're actually inching upwards. You're going to see some numbers here in the press, in the media, that in larger cities, the murder rate and the violent crime rate is actually inching upwards. It's still very, very low. It's maybe about half as much violent crime now as there was in about 20 years ago, in the 90s. But it has taken a jump in the last 2 years, and this is concerning. That said, these crimes, it's a per capita thing, and that's usually what they look at. Let's face it, you move to a big city, they're going to have a lot more crimes going on at any given time. That's why they have a big police force. There are a lot more crimes going on in a large city. New York has a lot of crimes. But when you look at it per person, 7 million people in the New York area, per person, its crime rate is very low. For instance, Indianapolis has a much higher crime rate than New York City. I think New York City is about 500 violent crimes per capita per 100,000 people. I think Indianapolis, if I'm right, I think it's around 1,200. So it's over twice as high. That said, there are a lot more crimes overall, and this is what Jenny was talking about, a lot more violent crimes overall on a in New York City than there is, say, in Indianapolis or other places. So Jenny's looking for a place that has fewer fewer crimes overall. And yes, the smaller town you move to, it's going to have a lower crime rate, a lower crimes overall, and also a lower crime rate generally than larger cities. The places with the highest number of crimes per capita, per person, is going to be probably about mid-sized cities, maybe about 300,000 or 400,000 population. And after that, it seems to taper off so that the larger metro areas actually have quite a bit less per capita. So what we have is on our site right now is something called the Crime Risk Index. And this is the possibility of a crime. And let me explain it this way. If you live in an area that has a lot of tornadoes, say Tulsa, and your zip code, your block hasn't been hit by a tornado, but if there are tornadoes all around it, we're still going to assign a pretty high risk possibility of that block or that zip code getting hit by a tornado, even though it hasn't happened recently or maybe even ever. So in the same way, we are assigning a crime risk index. Maybe there's never been a murder in a particular zip code in a particular town. That doesn't mean it will never happen if it happens, say, once every 10 years in the surrounding area. So that's how we have our crime risk. And we try to also normalize it by the city. Otherwise, we would say that every city, because we're trying to compare New York City with much smaller places, we do normalize it to an extent so that, yes, New York does have more crimes and there is a greater chance of crime, but comparatively to other places, it's going to be fairly low. So we compare it with other cities like itself. So I realize that may not help you totally, but what I will say is this: in every town, in every place, it seems like around the country, there are places that are more at risk and less at risk. You can probably find, even in places, well, for instance, Mike Kehoe, who is our business development, he's a Chicago guy. That's his hometown. He now lives in Virginia. But Mike was saying that basically people are always talking about the high murder rate in Chicago. That is confined to a relatively small number of neighborhoods. A few neighborhoods have a crazy high murder rate in Chicago. But if you listen to the news, it sounds like it is the murder capital of the US and everyone is in danger. Chicago, because of its size and everything, and the different groups of people living there, and the economic situations and everything, you can find beautiful places to live in Chicago that are going to be extremely low crime. And you're going to also have places that are going to be, well, they're places that you probably wouldn't want to drive through, and you certainly wouldn't want to be after dark. And it's like that in every city. Every city, I think, is going to have its areas that are going to be more prone to break-ins, more prone to shootings, more prone to car thefts, that sort of thing. So I would not count out any particular city just because it has a high crime rate. If that city has other things going forward, I would definitely look for those places in that town that have a low crime rate where you can be safe and stay away from the bad places. So I guess that's my thought about crime rates. And Jenny, I hope that gives you a little bit of insight. Anyway, let's see what else we have. We got some other things online here. It looks like Barbara is chatting online. She agrees that yes, crime in Chicago is localized to certain neighborhoods. I think Barbara has she's from Chicago and has some insight. So it's great that people are going on our live chat area and actually exchanging some information. Hey, you don't need me. You can just go ahead and talk amongst yourselves. And really, that's what's great about our site. When we have comments and when you leave comments about your place to live, you're helping all these other people out there as well. So thank you very much. Let's see what else. Someone is, well, just circling back to crime. Here we have one who's a 61-year-old woman who has worked as an RN, registered nurse, for 30 years. She lives in San Luis Obispo. I keep wanting to say St. Louis Nabisco, but I know that's not right. It's San Luis Obispo. San Luis Obispo has always been on my radar as maybe a really great place to live. It's on the California coast, and the best thing about it, I think, well, first of all, it has a college there, which is really important. I think college towns are great places to live. They have a lot of vibrancy, things are going on, and economically they're protected from booms and busts. And the best part about San Luis Obispo is it's basically halfway between LA and San Francisco. That means it's too far for people to buy someplace there and commute to either San Francisco or Los Angeles. And as a result, it's more affordable. It's still really expensive by a lot of standards, by the general standards of the United States in particular. But for California, living near the coast, it isn't bad at all. Well, let's say compared to Santa Barbara and so on, but it's a great spot, I would say, most of all for retirees. And because it's a smaller town, it's going to be more challenging for younger people to, say, start their career there, but it is a beautiful area. Anyway, she has a big empty house. She's an empty nester and has an ocean view and 3 acres. Wow, that sounds nice. So she's thinking maybe of things on our site point her towards Medford and Grants Pass. And this is in the Willamette Valley in Oregon, south. And this is where it starts to get drier. So it's drier, it has a little hotter summers, but it also has less cloud cover. She's concerned about the crime rate. And where she lives now, she doesn't even have to lock the doors where she lives. So I would just say that I would reiterate what I said before, that crime rates, Grants Pass and Medford are really nice places to live. Nick, our cartographer, just lived in the Roseburg area, and Roseburg, Grants Pass, and Medford are 3 cities in Southern Oregon. Every place has, I think, some crime to be concerned about. With civilization comes crime. And often civilized places, when I say civilized, meaning they have more amenities, they have more things to do, more resources, if you will. With those resources and with that infrastructure comes crime. So it's a trade-off. And I wouldn't count any place out. I wouldn't count out any particular place. I would look for what a place has going for it. And if it's really great, look for a place near there, some neighborhoods that are going to be fairly low crime. There's rarely a place that is overwhelmingly just unlivable as far as crime. Speaking of that, here's something interesting. Kristen writes, question, are the San Juan Islands really in a microclimate, getting more sun and less rain than the rest of the area? And what are other desirable microclimates? Well, The San Juan Islands are up in Washington, and they're basically north of Seattle. They're beautiful areas. They're kind of remote. They're islands, and they're great for, they're in the Puget Sound area, and they are wonderful for vacations, and they're pretty remote. They are on islands, and as a result, there is a challenge living on those islands. But they're beautiful and wonderful places, and sometimes things get a reputation of having microclimates. Well, sometimes a microclimate isn't always what you think. For instance, there's a place called Sequim. It's called Sequim, Sequim, Washington. And it's sort of legendary in its supposed microclimate, in that right next to it is the Olympic rainforest. It's the only rainforest in the United States, and it is wet. When I was a kid, my dad said, let's go, we're having a drought here in Oregon. We're going to take a trip up to the Olympic rainforest, and it should be just about right, because every place in the Northwest is having a drought. Well, it rained like crazy. We totally got washed out, and it's a rainforest on purpose. So, and I think that's where what was the name of some sort of vampire, some sort of teen vampire thing was filmed up in that area as well. And it is dark and it is wet, and a lot of rain falls in the Olympic rainforest. Well, what happens to Sequim is all this rain gets dumped in the Olympics, which is this large mountain range. And as a result, there isn't as much when it gets to Sequim, which is on the leeward side of it, I guess you would call it. So all this rain gets dumped, and supposedly Sequim doesn't have much. Well, it doesn't have much in the way of rainfall, but it does have, it's not as sunny as they say. Because what happens is, yeah, the rain gets dumped in the Olympics, but you still have the clouds passing over. It's not like the clouds suddenly disappear and somehow the clouds get all eaten up by the mountain, the Olympic mountains. But what happens is, Sequim doesn't get as much rainfall, certainly, because it's in the rain shadow of the Olympics, but it does get a lot of clouds. And I've spoken to residents in Sequim who pointed this out. So when you hear about Sequim being sunny, that's not quite true. It is drier than the rest of the area, but it is definitely not sunny. Same thing with the San Juan Islands. Like much in the Northwest, it's going to be cool, cloudy, wet, and maybe there is a little bit of a rain shadow. I haven't heard of a microclimate there being anything different, but it's beautiful. It's a beautiful area to live in. We're coming up here. We only got like 7 minutes left. I can't believe we've used up all this time. I guess I'm supposed to talk, so I guess I shouldn't feel too bad about that. Just talking away. I hope that we've provided some interesting insights and thoughts to you. Here's one from Sandra. She says, Asheville always remains on the best places to retire list, but she has noticed its numerical place seems to be dropping. Asheville was higher, it seems like, in all these rankings 4 years ago. And she wants to know, why do I think that is? Second question is, Williamsburg, Virginia, good place to retire. How are the medical services there for people over 60? And have I been to Charlottesville, Virginia lately? They're building everywhere. Is the city really planning and paying attention to whether the roads and other services will accommodate all this development? Yeah, and I feel a little bit guilty about Charlottesville. When we came out with our cities ranked and rated book in 2004, we chose Charlottesville, Virginia as the best place in the US to live. And actually folks there were pretty upset. They were good humored about it, but there was actually a group of people there that wanted sort of a zero population growth. And they spoke to me about that. And next time I went through town, I met with them and talked about basically their ideas of zero population growth, meaning that maybe there's a right size for a place, and why do cities have to keep growing until they basically become much less livable than what made them wonderful in the first place? And I see their point. I agree completely. A lot of times I would like to see cities just sort of be able to freeze, keep what they have, and maybe another city can grow and be just as wonderful. Unfortunately, I don't think the world works that way. I think we want to keep building. Cities want to keep building. They look at growth as being a very important aspect of being livable. I don't know if I always agree. Regarding Charlottesville, yeah, they're planning, but I think what's happening is places that were once high on lists, maybe they've been discovered. They are certainly becoming less affordable, as Charlottesville is, over the past 15 years, as Charlottesville has sort of become really noted as a great place to live. More people have moved there. There's been more development. Prices go up, and some of the magic is lost. Same thing with Asheville. I was in Asheville a couple of years ago for a while. Beautiful place. In some ways, it's becoming larger. It's becoming less affordable. It's becoming more expensive. That is an issue, I think, and that makes it bump down on the lists a little bit. But I still think it is a really great place to check out. One of our friends has moved in the last year from San Francisco to Asheville. I'm looking forward to talking to him because he's a young person in his 30s, and I'd like to see what he has to say about it, especially compared to San Francisco, where he spent a lot of time in the video game industry. So I'm interested to see what he thinks of it and how it compares with the big city, especially a West Coast city. So I'll be making that report later on. Let's look at our chat room and see if there's anything. It looks like we're having some great dialogue between Tony and Bubba and Ron. Yes, the Twilight series, Ron points out, was filmed partly in Forks, Washington. That was the place I was looking for. Thank you, Ron. Appreciate that. And let's see. Oh, here's an interesting thing, talking about Sequim, and that is Port Townsend, Washington. This is an interesting story and really odd how cities can go ahead and develop. Port Townsend was going to be this terminus for commerce. The ships didn't want to go into Seattle all the way. If they could stop at Port Townsend, which is on the way to Seattle, then they could offload onto a railroad. Well, this was in the 1880s, and all this development money went into Port Townsend. It got built up. They had beautiful buildings there from the Victorian era, which is very rare for the West Coast. Ferndale, I think that's another place in California which has some beautiful Victorian mansions. So anyway, what happened was they had all this development, then suddenly, in just a couple of years, everybody changed their minds and said, wait a minute, we won't bother with the railroad. We're just going to go right into Seattle. So basically, Port Townsend was abandoned. And for 100 years, there basically wasn't even enough of an economy to knock down these older buildings. So basically, they stayed frozen in time. So since the 1980s, 90s, and now, there are these old buildings that basically the whole area was too broke to even tear them down and rebuild them, which is amazingly wonderful because now they have these beautiful old structures that are there. So Port Townsend has some amazing places. You should go check it out. Looks like we're pretty much out of time, and there's so much I didn't get to, but please send me on our website any questions that you have. Hopefully you'll be able to check in on our website, bestplaces.net. Look at what we've been doing. We have a lot of new things that are happening, and thanks to you, our site traffic keeps going up, And so we'll have a lot more features for you to look at. We love to hear your comments, so please comment. Send me an email via the site. I get all of them and read all of them, so that's really important. And most of all, please leave a comment on what you find good or even not so good about where you live. You know where you live, warts and all, what's great about it, what's not so great, bestplaces.net. And so thanks for all your comments. It's a real joy being able to speak to you directly and leave this for you to think, some things to think about. So this is Bert Sperling, Sperling's Best Places at bestplaces.net. Thank you very much and have a great 2017.